So my question is, if the total biodiverse range of species had a spokesperson with the ability to speak, what would it ask you to do? 1 to 3 things.
I've already put myself in the shoes of some of our threatened species, and we've got a $3.5 million program for our koalas that Dr. Kelly Lee and I know the Blue Mountains World Heritage Institute people were here as well are working in partnership on, because I put myself in the shoes going, our koalas are really special. They're hugely genetically diverse. We have the potential to have a massive proportion of koalas going forward in a climate refuge environment. So I put myself in the shoes of that threatened species and got funding to support the people I know this stuff well. Same with platypus. That's the other one that when I moved to the mountains, we just didn't think there were platypus here 30 odd years ago, and now we know there are. And there's $1 million project that I secured funding for with Western Sydney Uni. So I'd rather act on their behalf, and there's some of the tangible things that I've done, because those species really matter.
Just following on from what I said in my talk earlier, I think if I were the spokesperson for these threatened species, I would ask us humans to recognise the inherent value of every species.
Respect for rights of nature to exist and not just be something that we consume.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Why is there no time limit on developmental approvals? So it's still viable when somebody like the Crocodile Farm organisation from the 1980s, 40 years later, because let's face it, corporations play the long game, the long game, and my thinking is there should be a time limit. There should be a null and void. You have approval for 5 to 7 years. After that, all bets are off. You start again from scratch, not a recreation of what you had development approval for, but you start again.
This is a really important state government issue. It's not something at a federal level that we have control over, but the state government a couple of years ago began an inquiry into this, and I was really encouraging people. There are zombie developments in the Hawkesbury in totally inappropriate places, just like there are in the mountains, and that inquiry has not yet, I don't know where it's at, but it's something I'll mention to Trish and see if we can get you some updated information on, because the state minister was asking the same questions. And what should we be doing? How should we be dealing with it and getting the views on that? I would be in the same category as you, thinking around it, but it isn't something I have jurisdiction over. I might just ask Romola, because as a councillor and deputy mayor, these guys bear the brunt of this state planning law, which has no time limit on it.
Thank you very much. I just want to also acknowledge Carolyn Williams in the room from the Conservation Society for much work, particularly on that particular zombie DA. And I just wanted to say that it is very much, as Susan said, it is very much a state issue. So people forget that we have our local environment plan, but it's made under the powers that are delegated to us by the state government. And unfortunately, when it comes to what's called zombie DAs, which is the easiest way to think about it, there is no, if they have started work on the DA, then that DA remains in place. Over many years, Local Government New South Wales, our peak body, and councils have been calling for review of this provision, and there is an inquiry underway. It has not, the findings of that have not actually been released, and I think probably it is a good time to follow up with Trish Doyle. And our council did make a submission saying that these laws need to, these provisions, I guess, need to be reviewed.
About 10 years ago, I read a paper by WWF, the World Wide Fund for Nature, or whatever they now call themselves, World Wide Fund, which was about land clearing in Queensland. They identified weak nature laws, but they also identified another law that was weak, and that's the animal welfare law in Australia. The animal welfare law in Australia is not designed to protect Australia's native wildlife. So about the same time, I was invited to attend a presentation at Sydney University's Law School where a legal researcher from the United States was the presenter, and it was very clear in the US that they were working on law reform that was combining environmental nature laws with the animal welfare law. So if that's not happening in Australia, which I think it probably still isn't, you can answer that after I've finished, I strongly encourage you to attempt law reform in both of those areas, not one, and to connect both.
Thanks. It's certainly not something that I have any new information about. But what I would say is that Dermot O'Gorman from World Wildlife Fund Australia, who's the CEO, said about this new environment laws, he described them as substantial changes to ensure our nature laws do what they're supposed to do, protect nature. Nature now has a fighting chance. So we really respect the work WWF did in the lead up to that, and I'm very pleased that they have a level of satisfaction with this set of laws. And I'm happy to take up the other aspects around widening, and maybe not with this law, but just see what opportunities there are.
I think that's something that we really should support. It's this idea again of rights of nature and animal welfare, and you're right, we don't do that nearly well enough. In fact, I think it's only coming in recently that people actually can't leave dogs in in cars that are getting hot because of a recognition of the animal welfare. How did it take so long to do that? Anyway, I support that. I think that's fabulous.
I'm just going to add to that. It may also be our laws are different. The way our legal system works is very different to the states. So I'm also going to check because my suspicion is a lot of this will sit at state. So I'll raise it with Trish as a follow-up out of here as well.
I'm Luciana from Lura. My question is to you, Susan. Why didn't the Labour government bring the strongest environmental laws to be voted in the Senate? As you said, they needed to be negotiated, and you're glad that they were negotiated with the Greens, because the Greens wanted to make native forest logging illegal, but Labour only agreed to remove the exemption. The Greens wanted no more gas and coal mine projects, but the Labour only agreed to no fast-tracking approvals. The Greens wanted stronger and clear standards and an EPA with teeth, and not an offset pathway. At what point does the destruction of nature become simply illegal, regardless of what a corporation can afford to pay in offsets?
So it's a negotiation, which means that neither side gets exactly what they want, most likely. But I think if you're dissatisfied with what your representatives agreed to, that's probably something to take up with them, because the Greens did support this package. They voted and passed it through.
Why didn't Labour, since they have a majority, didn't bring the strongest law to be voted in the Senate?
So
the way you frame it, it makes us believe that the laws were really good, but they had to negotiate it down to be passed, which was not the case. The laws weren't worth the paper they were written on, and the Greens managed to make them a little bit less bad.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a comment, I think.
My name is Michael Kindler, and I've looked at the 25 years that the Blue Mountains has been a World Heritage in terms of its cultural, environmental and economic impact, and my book is coming out next month. I was pleased to see the Environment Protection Reform Act come in, and in fact, in addition to the previous speaker, I put in a submission to the Senate for the Blue Mountains, in which I talked about the incremental erosion of climate change, species loss, loss of habitat, and invasive species. My question's very simple. Does any panel member have confidence that future generations can enjoy what we enjoy today?
Well, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing what I do for future generations, and I've been only doing it for 15 years in the political environment. But I think we have to have hope that the changes we're making after a decade of seeing things go backwards is a step in the right direction. You can't pretend that nearly decade of Conservative government didn't happen, and we can't undo what has happened there. We can also look back and go, damn, we didn't do enough when we had the chance last time we were in government in the middle of a GFC, and a whole lot of things where we go, damn, we might have missed some opportunities there too. So you can always reflect back on how things could have been better, but I'm really confident that what we are doing is the very best we can do, and we will keep doing things, because it isn't just, oh, let's do this, tick the box and it's done. This is not a tick and flick exercise. This is a genuine commitment, which every Labor government has had, to improve the environment. And you can go back as far as you like, but my generation tends to go back to the Franklin Dam and the steps of the Hawke government, followed by Keating, the changes that Kevin Rudd worked hard to make and, didn't get exactly where we wanted, but elevated the issue in the face of ridiculous opposition. So I'm confident we're doing everything we can, but there's always more to do. And I also know, I'm super confident that as long as I keep doing this role, I will bloody well keep fighting.
Yes, I really like that question, and I think across Australia there will be a lot of change. But if we have a look at, in the Blue Mountains, the current rock layer is 50 million years old. I mean, the base layers are, hundreds of millions of years old. So that 50 million year old beautiful eucalyptus forest has been evolving over those 50 million years. And of course they will have changed. And things will change in the future because nature continues to evolve. I think what gives me hope is the fact that Aboriginal people lived at Dargan Cave in the last ice age, 21,000 years ago, and before that. And they are still here. And our World Heritage Area has these magnificent Wallamai pines that survived since 91 million years ago. Do I think it will all be the same as it is today? Probably not. But things evolve, and I do have confidence that in 7 generations, if humans are still on the planet, that we will have beautiful things to enjoy. But let's not lose them. That will only happen if we keep what we've got and we restore what we can.
It is such a wonderful closing question. And I think to look forward and be confident that things will be as good or better, I think you'd have to be crazy to be confident. We're facing such risks. But I think we do have hope, and there's so many good signs for hope. Since the bushfires, the recovery of species like koalas and greater gliders in the forests around here and elsewhere has been astonishing, and that gives me hope. The fact that we've just tipped over 50% of our energy coming from clean sources in Australia, when only a few years ago it was almost 80, 90% coal, that gives me a huge amount of hope. Even at the moment, we're in this cost of living crisis, and there's some silver linings with like the number of people buying electric cars has tripled or whatever. We're taking steps in the right direction. And I just wanted to say that I think it's so important that we make sure that we bring everybody along and we make sure everybody can benefit from the transition. A lot of us have been able to put on solar panels and batteries, but people living in rental properties haven't had that opportunity, and they've had to suffer from higher power prices. And it's so important that we fix the laws to make sure no one's left behind and everyone can benefit, because there is a right wing rising and trying to undo all our progress, and so it's important that I think we stay hopeful and we keep showing how we are making things better.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great wrap-up question. I think I am confident. I'm a kind of glass half full kind of guy, but I think I'm only confident if all of us as individuals and as the organisations that we're part of, and in fact hundreds of organisations like this all over Australia and indeed internationally, if we continue to put pressure on governments and on corporations to stop doing bad stuff and do a lot more good stuff, then I think hopefully our kids and grandkids and so on can live in a world that's reasonably similar to what we've got, but only if that happens. Thank you.
Could I just add, I required all my students to adopt a minister in the government. That made enormous amount of changes, and one of those ministers who got adopted went on to be a competitor for the Prime Minister of Canada. That's the power of taking courageous action.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Thank you. Could you express your appreciation to the panel, please? Thank you so much.